Hey y'all, welcome to my first chapter on my book, Trail of Adventure, Trail of Fire. I'm going to be going over the book and giving you some background with it, some different stories with it as I go through. This is a book that I wrote 20, back 21 years ago, back in 2004. And like, if you watch my first video telling about that there was going to be a change coming for Fridays, what said with the books, what's out there now, do not buy. I'm not making any money off of it. And so this is my only way that I'm going to be able to make any money, unless if my literary agent can get me a good book deal with a traditional publishing company. But I really want to share my work with you. First off, I want to give a special thanks to my friend out in Texas, Kay Dennis. She went and helped proofread this whenever I first was redoing it for Stratton Press. Whenever I went and signed a contract with them, and so she went and helped me go through, kind of clean it up, because some of the language in the book was how I talk, and she said it wouldn't read good that way. So we'll go through, look at I'll read with the chapter and on some of the information. Just to give some background on me, I first started out in corrections, and then later on I moved into security, and that's what I've been doing for the past 20 odd years now. So I enjoy that kind of work. I did. It's gotten old now. I'm ready to kind of retire and move on, but still got a few years before I can actually retire. Some of the things that I've done in the past, I have raced cars. I was dirt track racing a couple of years. Just kind of trying to give a little bit of background. So that's why with the channel, it's Life's Crazy Adventures, or Todd's Life Adventure. And so life is an adventure. And with the books, if you watch the first video, the two main characters are loosely based on me and my best friend Cliff Hayes, which he's no longer with us. As you'll see in the books, that he had some problems, and never thought it'd lead to where it did, but unfortunately several years back he went and took his own life. So part of these books are a tribute to him. I loved him like a brother. He would do anything for me. Left after just getting off work and going to bed. Whenever I had a flat tire, could call him, come, got up, helped me out with, as I didn't have a spare, and all around good guy. And I really appreciate him. And so let's get into the book. This is the cover, the latest iteration of it. And starting out, it was just after dusk when Doc and I saw the campfire in the distance. We had been on the trail of the wagon train for several days, wishing to catch up with it for grub and company. Our victuals were mostly gone, and we sure hoped we could get some grub at the camp. We held the campfire and were told to come on in. The first person we met was a tall, heavy-set man in his 60s. "Come on in, men, light and set," he hollered. "Name's Captain Gregory." I pointed to my right and said, "This here's Doc and I'm Tobe." Captain Gregory asked, "Are you fellas hungry? We got a decent cook." I said, "Don't mind if we do. We haven't had anything since yesterday, and that was just a couple of rabbits that Doc shot." The cook was a young man that had been appointed to keep store of food and to prepare meals for the men who didn't have women with them or those who just wished to have someone else cook for them. This way they could keep track of the food supplies and make sure they didn't run out. When Captain Gregory introduced us to Nate, the cook, we figured we must found the right place for food. Nate was also a big man, over 6 foot, and my guess was around 300 pounds. He was big. With Nate and the captain, we knew they weren't starving. After we ate, we joined several people at one of the campfires, and we listened in on the conversations. We were west of the Brazos River in the northern plains of Texas. The wagon train was heading west into New Mexico territory, and the north through Colorado and Wyoming. Some wanted to go on a southern route to California, while others wanted to go north, then go to Oregon. Doc and I had already planned on going to Wyoming, or there was a place in the New Mexico territory we were always welcome. There was nothing written in stone. We just wanted to see new lands and some old ones being free to go where we pleased. It seemed to us if they were going to go in our general direction, it might be good to stay with the wagon train till we decided otherwise. It would provide needed safety going through Indian territory. It was 1872, and there were still a lot of Indians that would love to take our scalps. We believed the more guns the better. Doc was a good hunter, and we both could bring in food. We also knew the land from some of our other travels and from listening to others that had gone this way before. We could scout out the trails for the wagon train to help them get to where they wanted to go. After the talk died down and we were getting ready to settle in for the night, Doc and I headed to our horses to get them picketed out, also to get our bedrolls. We knew with a full belly we would sleep well tonight, but once again it would be on the hard, cold ground. In wild country, you just had to expect the unexpected. Doc and I had surely been in wild country before. We had met during the war, and ever since trouble had followed us. We had met in 1863 when Doc joined up with the Confederacy. He was only 15, but had told them he was older. I was 25, and at first I had tried to look after him some. He was reckless and daring, dashing off to fight. He was good with a gun, and there wasn't any backing up in him. So I did my best to watch his back and keep him out of trouble. The thing about it, he wound up saving my life. In July of 1864, I got shot in a skirmish in Macon, Georgia during the fighting with Sherman's men. I was hit 3 times, one in the upper part of my stomach by a big bore musket and 2 in the side by a .36 Navy revolver. Lucky for me, their powder was bad or something, because the lead didn't go in very deep and to get to anything vital. Doc got me to a farm, and the lady of the house let us come in and gave me a place to lie down. Doc then removed the lead from me with his knife, as I was out from pain and lack of blood. Doc had earned his name there, though he was already known by it. He had already shown medical knowledge on the battlefield, helping with wounded when the fighting was over. His family had wanted him to be a doctor when he grew up, and they had the money to get him some training before he ran off to join the war, though we didn't find this out till later. The bad part for his family, he had too much fight in him, and he wasn't going to be tied down the way they wanted. I was laid up for about 3 weeks before I could ride, and I stayed at the farm where I had been taken after I'd been wounded. The lady of the house was the wife of a Confederate officer, engineer by training and trade. She did her best to take care of me while I was down. It took me about a month to find my unit and join back fighting the Yankees. Doc was there, and from that point on, we stuck together throughout the war. After the war, we went our separate ways, going back to where was left of our homes, Doc to Georgia and me to Alabama. Then a little over 3 years ago, Doc comes up to my place where I was raising horses with an old friend of mine. I was in bad shape financially, and Doc said he was heading west, so I told Doug that I was pulling out, that when I had enough money I would be back to pay him off and the other debts I owed. I took 2 of the best horses. One was a big paint gelding that was about 4 years old, 16 and a half hands, and between 1,200 and 1,500 pounds. Definitely not the average cow pony. The other was his sister, another beautiful paint mare, a year younger and not quite as big, only about 15 hands. I didn't know she had been bred at the time, and while we were gone, I got a big surprise in another paint colt. Over those 3 years, Doc and I did some mining, rode shotgun for a stage line, did some bounty hunting, anything to make some money. We had just gone back and paid off my debt, and were going back out west when we had come across the wagon train's trail. We were also fortunate to find that there were people we knew on the wagon train. We hoped this would ensure a good trip for everyone. The next morning after breakfast, we lit out heading west. Ty, my big gelding, didn't like following, so we went out first to scout out our trail. Doc, riding out on Malaby, my mare, went off hunting for food to kill. There were about 40 people on the wagon train, so even with the supplies, there would still need to replenish what had been eaten. You did not want to run out of food out here. My other horse, Regal, was tied to one of the other wagons, and he carried mine and Doc's supplies. You had to take care of your horses because you never knew when you were going to need them for a fast getaway or just to get you from one place to another. I took care of my 3, but I had a special bond with them. To me, they were like my children. I had raised them since they were born. I didn't have a wife or kids, so they, along with Doc, were my family on the trail. Doc's horse had been shot out from under him by Indians, so until he could get another, he had the use of Malaby, with the understanding he must take care of her and keep her safe. With the wagon train being the size it was, travel was slow, and we were lucky to get 20 miles a day. As I scouted, I tried to find the easiest way possible for the wagons to go over, and the best places to cross the rivers and creeks. Most of the men on the wagon train had never been west or had done any kind of traveling like this, especially with their families in tow, ready for a new start on life. They were proud men, but even 7 years after the war, things were still bad for the South. They had stayed to try and make things work, but had not been able to. The carpetbaggers and scalawags had finally driven those men away from their homes. Now they searched for a new beginning in what they hoped was a better place. They were tough and steady men who could build up and make a place where others could one day settle. These were the kind of men that make the way for others to follow. Without men like them, the country could never grow. These men dared to dream and live that dream by leaving behind what they knew and loved for the unknown future. They were men the country could be proud of. As I scouted out the land, seeing the beauty of it and how striking it was, could almost make you forget everything else. All the vegetation was in bloom as it was mid-April. It made a man think and contemplate the things in his life. Only thing, you better not let your mind wander off too far, or you could be in a world of trouble. And that's what happened to me. Looking out over the land, I was letting the sun warm me, with my mind thinking of another place and time. There was a shout that rang out, the bullet missing me by inches, and I turned. Swinging around, pulling up my Winchester, I saw 3 Comanche heading towards me at a dead run. I fired one quick shot and headed Ty back towards the wagon train. Ty is a big horse, but he's fast also, and I knew once I was over the rise at the nearest hill, I could get away. They were shooting as they chased me. I had bullets flying by me. One bullet burned my neck, but it was only a graze. As I topped the rise, Doc came running up on Malaby, heading towards those Comanche. He had a 12-gauge double-barrel shotgun he preferred that was sawed off. Doc fired one of the barrels, then the second one. I saw one Indian fall. They pulled up short, seeing Doc running toward them like he did and not knowing if there were more where he came from. I turned Ty around and sighted in on one of the Indians, hitting him in the chest. The other one started to run, but his horse missed a step and he went off the horse into the brush. Doc had reloaded and put some buckshot into the brush. If he hit anything, we didn't stick around to see, but went back towards the wagons. Captain Gregory and some of the other men met us as they were riding out to help after hearing the shots in the distance. We explained what happened, and Captain Gregory sent out men to watch for Indians. Captain Gregory asked, "You think they'll attack?" I said, looking around at the terrain. It was probably just a hunting party out rounding up grub. I doubt there's any more close by, but we still need to be careful and keep a watch out for any more just in case. Doc looking over at me. "I can't leave you alone no time without you getting shot." "What?" I asked. "Your neck," Doc said, grinning. I reached and felt my neck. There was blood in a nice little groove about half an inch above where my neck and shoulder came together. "Oh, that's just a scratch. I don't even count that," I said, rubbing my neck. Doc said tauntingly, "Well, I think you just did it to get attention from the women. There are a few nice-looking ones in the group." I said, grinning, "You're just jealous you didn't get shot. Next thing you know, you'll go pick a fight with the whole Comanche nation so you can get scratched and get some attention too." Doc said, "I might do it. Not for the attention, mind you, just where I can get in a good fight." I said, shaking my head, "Boy, you and your fighting, if you make it to old age, it'll be beyond me." Doc said seriously, "Who said anything about making it to old age?" "Not us, that's for sure," I said. "Come, let's get back to the wagons." After midday, the wagons stopped to let the horses and other animals rest. Nate began to build a fire to get something cooking, while others did the same, preparing their meals. We were all alert, but Captain Gregory set up sentries to watch for Indians, then came to me asking about the land and what they might need to do. I told him I would head a little southwest from here and try to pick up one of the Goodnight Loving trails that go through New Mexico. If we reach it, travel will be a little easier with watering holes and grass for our animals if some of the herds haven't eaten it up. It might make the traveling easier for the wagons too, I said as I thought about it. Captain Gregory asked as he scratched his head. That's what I was thinking too, but aren't there a lot of Injuns going that way? Yep, I replied. We'll have to travel through Apache country and some desert land. Then there are other tribes and bandits. There's no doubt it'll be rough going, but we can make it. One of the men came up and asked for Captain Gregory to come with him, so they excused themselves and went towards one of the wagons. I started back towards where Doc was talking to Nate. Then I heard a voice ring out, "Tobe!" I looked to my right and saw a woman coming towards me saying, Tobe Harris, is that you?" I could not believe my eyes. It was Mrs. Jameson. Mrs. Jameson was the lady Doc had taken me to during the war whenever I was shot. While I was there, we had become good friends. In a way, she was like a sister to me. We had not been in touch since I had left her place during the war, but while I was there, we had talked a lot, and I thought very well of her. I went up to her and said, "Clarice Jameson, I didn't think I would ever see you again." She said, "My husband John and I are heading west. We just couldn't take things the way they were becoming." I sighed. "I know what you mean." I got Doc's attention and had him come over. I asked Clarice, "Do you remember Doc? He's the one that brought me to your place." Yes, I do," she said, smiling. I told her, "Well, we've been traveling a lot the past couple of years. I was in debt partly by the Yankees and partly by my fault." I paused. "Plus, both of us had women trouble, and it looked like the time to leave." Clarice saw my neck where I'd been grazed by the bullet. She asked, "Were you the one that got hit today? I heard someone had." "Yes, it was me," I grinned. "I guess the only time I ever see you is after I've been shot. Don't take this the wrong way, but if that's the case, I'd just as soon not see you." She said after she punched, "Hey, Tobe, you know that doesn't have anything to do with you seeing me." "Couldn't prove it by me," I smiled, saying, "women have been bad luck for me since I can remember." A man walked up that was slim, about my height, and balding. Clarice said, "Tobe, this is my husband John." I reached out to shake his hand and said, "Nice to meet you, sir." Clarice added, "This is Tobe, the soldier I told you about, who was brought to our place and I nursed back to health after he had been shot." John said as he shook my hand, "So you're the soldier my wife told me so much about." I said, grinning, "I hope it was good. I've had enough bad things said about me lately." John said seriously, "Of course it was. She thought mighty highly of you." I smiled, saying, "Truth be known, I thought highly of her too." John changed the subject. "I'm writing a book about the war. Sometime maybe we could sit down and talk, and you can tell me about some of your experiences so I could add them to the book." I said, shrugging my shoulders, "I don't know if I could tell you much, just a lot of fighting and sitting, waiting for more fighting." John nodded and asked, "I know it would be interesting. What outfit were you with?" I answered, "I was in the 10th Confederate Cavalry, Company C, under Captain Slaughter during the first of the war." John stated, "It was a tough unit. I know it would be interesting to talk to you." "Well, John, Clarice, I guess I need to go see if there's anything Doc and I can do to help." I winked, adding, "I got to keep Doc out of trouble. See y'all later." After we headed back out, Doc and I went out ahead of the wagons. Doc was itching for some more action, hoping this time he could steal one of the Indian ponies. He was ready to have one of his own instead of using one of mine. About an hour before dusk, it started looking cloudy. It was April and storms were likely, so we went back to the wagons to settle in for the night. Luck held up till we ate, then the rain set in. We found a spot under one of the wagons and managed to stay semi-dry as the rain fell. Thunder sounded through the night and lightning hit close by. The horses and other livestock were restless and made it hard to sleep. When morning came, we were a lot wetter, but the sun came out and started drying things up. That morning we started for Fort Contro to get supplies needed for the long trail ahead. And that completes chapter 1. Hope you enjoyed it. Some of the background with it, the horses that are mentioned in there are my horses. His actual name was Tyrell, named after Tyrell Sackett from Louis L'Amour's books. I was a big Louis L'Amour fan, and my style of writing kind of come from Louis L'Amour. Tobe, the name that I used, was for the book, for my character, as the nickname. Tobe was actually the nickname of my great-grandfather. And his wife's maiden name was Harris, so in the book I got Tobe Harris from putting my great-great-grandparents' names together. And where it says that Tobe was part of the 10th Confederate Cavalry Company C. Now that was the unit my great-great-grandfather was in during the war. And I know some people might think that's controversial with the Confederacy and all that, but you got to remember, in that day of age, the men that fought in the war, they weren't fighting for slavery or anything like that. They were fighting for their states' rights. They believed in states' rights, not a big central government, and so that's what they were fighting for. Wasn't, as put out in the book, wasn't until I think 1863 that they went and started making the war about slavery. But try to put some historical facts in there, mix it along with the fiction. So I hope y'all have enjoyed it. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. If there's anything else you want to know about me, about the books, let me know. And Lord willing, next Friday we'll hit chapter 2. I may try to get a little bit more reading in depending on the size of the chapters, but I can see that this has almost been 30 minutes, so didn't really mean to go that long, but hope you enjoyed it. God bless you, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.